Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today I have a new firearm to show you. I just purchased this, and I actually brought it to the gunsmith because I wanted to have sights installed, but you can tell from the box that it is a Glock. Let's open it up. You've already seen from the title what this firearm is, and there you go. It's a Glock 43, the new single stack 9, not even really new anymore. It's been out for over a year. But I've been really curious about trying this handgun out for a long time. I already own a Glock 19. I already own a Glock 26. So I've got the mama Glock, the baby Glock, and now I've got the genetically mutated, tiny, weird Glock. But it's a single stack 9. I've really been looking forward to trying this out. So this video is going to be sort of an initial impressions. I will be taking this to the range tomorrow. I'll probably roll in some footage of that. And then afterwards, I will just give you my impressions, how I think it performs. I'm probably going to be shooting it against my 19 because I probably shoot my 19 better than any other handgun I own. And so I just want to see, you know, in a tiny little package like this, a single stack 9, if it's going to be really snappy, if it's going to jump around a lot. I'm not expecting to shoot it as well as I shoot my 19, but we shall see. So just a quick overview of this. You can see that I have already placed some Talon grips on this. These are not the granulate, but just the rubber grips. I figured, you know, with my 19 and my 26, the Gen 4 rough texture frame is plenty for me to get a good grip on the gun. I don't really need anything else, and I have pretty big hands. But I'm able to get a good grip on these guns. I use the medium backstrap on this, so it's basically the same as like a Gen 3 in grip size. But with this guy, you can't see now because I have the Talon grips on there, but the texture isn't quite as rough as it is on the 26 and the 19. And so, I don't know, I just figured because I do have fairly large hands, it might be a little hard to keep a grip on this baby, so I figured I'd try the Talon grips out. You can always rip them off if you're not a fan. And then as soon as I got this, before I ever shot it, still haven't shot it yet, I will be doing that tomorrow, I had some Trijicon HD night sights placed upon it. Probably my favorite sights. I really, really like these. I've got these on my 26 as well, but I do not have them on my 19. My 19 just has Glock factory night sights, which are fine, you know, 3-dot, but I kind of prefer the U-notch in the back here, a little wider, and then there's that paint on the front sight post that glows after it's been illuminated by sunlight or unnatural light as well. And then of course there's tritium inserts, and then it has a blacked out rear, serrated so it doesn't glare. It's just kind of cool. But anyway, the form factor of this thing, it is tiny. If you see it in comparison to the 26, let's see if we line up the slides, you can see that the 19 is a good deal thinner and a little bit shorter. The grips are almost the exact same length, but obviously it's much thinner. And so with pretty big man hands like I have, it doesn't feel undersized though. I still feel like I have a good grip on it, especially with those Talon grips. And I'm really thinking I'm going to be able to shoot it pretty well. It is unloaded, nothing in the magazine, empty chamber, so no worries there. But I'm just kind of wondering, you know, because my finger does extend so far past the trigger guard on this baby, when I do put my finger in the trigger guard, instead of getting on the pad of my finger, which is where you're supposed to be supposedly, it's more in the crook of my index finger. I don't know. I still think it's going to be fine. The trigger, by the way, I had my pick of several different 43s when I went to the gun store to get this, and I tried out several of the triggers, and I had always heard that the 43 had kind of a heavier trigger than a lot of the other Glocks. Usually Glocks are pretty consistent. And for a striker fire pistol, I really like the triggers. I think they're not bad, not very mushy at all. They have a really nice reset. But this one is really nice. It's really crisp for a striker fire gun. If you can see, you get a little bit of take up, and then there's not really any mush in there at all when you hit the wall. And I would say that's even under 5.5 pounds. It seems the lightest of any of my other Glock triggers, so I'm really pleased with that. I think that'll go a long way towards me shooting this well. Anything else different about the 43? Well, actually, the contouring at the top there, can you see that? On top of the barrel, it's sort of contoured a little bit which is different from all the other Glock models. It has a double recoil spring as usual. It does have this sort of oblong firing pin block as opposed to on the Glock 19. My hands are sweaty. You can see just the circular one there. And there are a few other minor interior differences, internal differences. Actually, the takedown lever here, I doubt you'll be able to see this, but there's actually a coil spring in there as opposed to kind of the, I don't know what you would call that, leaf spring like they have in the other ones. And it actually makes it a little easier to actuate that. I never had trouble with it anyway, but I thought that might be worth pointing out. And there is this little bit of raised portion around the slide release, or the slide stop, I guess. You're not supposed to use it as a release according to Glock. It comes with a flush fit 6-round magazine like this, and then also a magazine that's also 6 rounds but has this little pinky extension. I am not a fan of the pinky extension thing. They do that with the 26 as well. I don't need it. I don't need it there. My finger almost doesn't fit on it anyway. My hands are big enough that it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And I have no problem firing a gun with my pinky hanging off. It's not a big deal. If you have the proper grip on the gun, I really don't see why it's an issue. And the whole point of this gun is that it's supposed to be small and compact. And with that in mind, you know, 6 rounds, not a huge capacity. I did buy 2 other magazines, and I put a +1 Terran Tactical base plate on this one. And I like this because it really doesn't add that much bulk at all to the gun. You can see there's very, very little, but you do get that +1. And then I also got, just because if I'm going to be going to the range and shooting quite a few rounds, I don't want to have to just keep reloading 6-round magazines over and over. I got a +3 as well from Terran Tactical, but that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, look at that. It's completely odd and outsized and strange. I have rounds in this right now because I will point out with the Terran Tactical base plates, they are hard to seat when you first install them. It was really hard to get this magazine to seat and really hard to rack around into the chamber. But if you wear the springs down a little bit, I've had this loaded for a while now, it's much easier to seat. And I can actually rack around in without too much trouble. Knocking the tripod. Yes, we are clear again. And this one was pretty tough too, but it's fine now. So I like that. +1 base plate from Terran Tactical. I have put on the Trijicon HD night sights and the Talon grips, and that's it. I'm not a huge believer in needing to customize the Glock really any more than that. I always put different sights on, obviously, but internally I keep things pretty much stock because they work just fine for me. The triggers are always just fine for me. I shoot them fine, not a problem. So initial impressions without having shot the gun yet are very positive. I really like the clean simplicity of Glocks. That's what drew me to them to begin with, and now I'm quite used to them. I'm quite used to shooting them, and this 43 just feels like a little Glock. It still feels like a Glock. In hand, all the controls are the same. Obviously, I can actuate everything very simply without really having to think about it. It's just something I'm used to, so I think I should transition well to this little single stack. And now we will take it to the range. We'll fire it a little bit. We'll see how we do. And at the end, we'll just come back and I'll give you my impressions after having fired it for the first time. All right, time for the, I guess we'll call it the after action report. I have fired, I did about 125 rounds through the Glock 43. Had no problems whatsoever with the gun, but I did have a couple issues, and you'll be able to see that when I roll in some footage. So these are the very first shots with the Glock 43, and at first everything goes fine. I get almost through the entire magazine, but then it hangs up. The slide locks back. And it's not because I had a malfunction, it was actually because my thumb accidentally pressed the slide stop because of just where my thumb is when I'm gripping the pistol. So I had 1 round left. I had to just actuate the slide and shot off that last round. So let me just illustrate that for you. You can see when I actually grasp the gun, the normal grip that I would use, my thumb wants to ride right on that slide stop. So I was having trouble occasionally. I'd be riding that while I was firing and the slide was staying open. It wasn't actually a problem with the gun. It wasn't having any sort of stoppage or anything. I was just riding that slide stop, the slide would come back, and it would stick there. So I had to adjust my grip a little bit.
Now here's the very next magazine. You can see the very first shot. Oh, once again, accidentally locked the slide back. And so for the rest of this magazine, you can see I'm kind of tentative because I'm trying to adjust my grip and make sure that I'm holding the pistol in a way that I will not keep doing that, keep locking the slide back over and over. But I do manage to get through the rest of the magazine without any more trouble.
But once I kind of fooled around with my grip, tried to develop maybe a little bit better way of grabbing this gun than I would a normal gun. You can see on like a 19, when I have the normal thumb forward grip, my thumb sits right behind the slide stop, so it's not an issue. With the 43 though, because the grip is narrower, my hand wraps around further and my big fat thumb and that giant knobby knuckle wants to go right there. So I just had to adjust that a little bit, but once I did, I didn't have any more problems with it. In terms of the actual recoil impulse and everything, I think you'll see from the footage that it is a little snappier. I didn't have any problem controlling the recoil though. I didn't have any pain in my hand. After shooting 125 rounds, my hand wasn't sore, no issues as far as that goes.
So here's one of the last magazines I fired off with the Glock 43, and by this point I had adjusted my grip. I was feeling more comfortable with the gun, shooting it a lot better than I did at first, and you can see the muzzle rise there. It's not bad at all. It's actually very controllable. I'd say it's noticeably more than the Glock 19 in terms of recoil impulse, and just a little bit maybe more than the Glock 26, but definitely very controllable, not bad at all. And by this point I was really just feeling comfortable with the gun and enjoying shooting it quite a bit.
I didn't have any issues with any of the magazines or the magazines that had the base plates installed. Everything fed fine. I was able to seat the magazines fine. Like I said before though, you do have to kind of wear these springs in a little bit. They are kind of tough to seat at first when the springs are brand new. And now for accuracy, you can see this is my first target with the Glock 43. This is at 7 yards standing. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots right there. Not bad, standing 7 yards, but I was able to close it up a little bit after that. It definitely was a little less shootable than my Glock 19 would be. Here's an example of how I do with a 19 normally. That's 15 rounds, 7 yards standing. That's a Blazer Brass 115 grain ammo there. One ragged hole and then a couple other little flyers. These are 1-inch squares, by the way. So at 7 yards, 21 feet, not bad. I think this is my second target with the 43, and you can see I'm still kind of spreading it out there. This was with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This was with 8 rounds. So still not anywhere near what I was shooting with the Glock 19, but again at 7 yards, not horrible. But by the end of the trip, this is 3 magazines. So I think that was 18 rounds from the Glock 43 at 7 yards. So I was sort of starting to dial it in a little bit there, and that's a little more respectable. So all in all, I would say that the gun is pretty shootable. It's about as shootable as I expected it to be for a small little compact single stack 9mm. Aside from the issue where my thumb was hitting the slide stop, once I kind of adjusted my grip a little bit and got that figured out, I was able to dial it in a little bit. It is a little more jumpy than the Glock 19, but definitely controllable, and I was pretty pleased with it. No problems whatsoever, 125 rounds. I didn't expect there to be any issues with the gun itself. So I am quite happy with the Glock 43, and I will continue to shoot this gun. Maybe I'll give you guys some updates in the future in terms of reliability. I'm expecting it to be totally reliable. That's just kind of the way a Glock is usually. No break-in period usually needed, but I'll try out some different kinds of ammo and stuff, maybe some defensive rounds, hollow points, and things like that. But as of now, I am quite pleased with this Glock 43. I enjoyed shooting it very much, and I was really happy with just the performance and the shootability for such a tiny little single stack 9mm. So thanks for watching. I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things, giving you my initial impressions of the Glock 43 single stack 9mm handgun.